All right, give me a second here. All right. Welcome to another edition of Radio Blasphemy. Today I have Efrain on the line. Efrain is a divorce attorney who's helped me in some cases in the past. We won't get into all of that. But more importantly, we're going to discuss, what rights we currently have. I know that some of you are facing child support issues, visitation issues. We're also going to discuss about wills and a few other things that Efrain specializes in to help us with what's going on. We have a bunch of things that are going on. I think usually, Efrain, I like to segue in with what's going on, but maybe you can join me in on the conversation of what's going on as far as what our government's doing. I can't completely bash them, but God, it's a hot mess as far as I can see things. More importantly, I don't know if you guys have seen. We'll start with this, and we won't touch too much on it. But all the loans that they were designated for small business of the SBA, and the money has run out. They just let us know that essentially that there is no money. They can no longer lend the money out, and if you didn't get any, you're out of luck. What are your thoughts on that, Efrain? I mean, I know it's from the legal end, but you're on a small end. You're also a small business.
Yeah, right. My gut is that there's a second wave of a relief package for the public, which probably will include a second wave of assistance for small businesses. I have been fortunate enough so far to ride this wave because I've been doing this for so long that I still get phone calls. And I've been managing to stay afloat based on just the fact that my business has been in existence for quite some time. And so I get referrals from former clients. So the way we're doing it is that they'll call the office, and then either myself or my paralegal will call them from our homes, from our cell phones to set up a Skype or not a Skype, but a FaceTime or just a regular telephone conversation where they, decide whether or not they want to proceed with a case, a brand new case, or something that needs to be modified. A lot of the cases that are coming, that are happening right now, have to do with downward modification of child support. There's a lot of men, assuming that the mothers only have residential custody. A lot of the men are childless. They're, not having full compensation because they haven't been able to get through. And also visitation interference petitions, where the mothers are, in some cases, using COVID-19 as an excuse not to allow their children to see their father. And I'll explain a lot more about that. But you started to ask me about assistance for small businesses. I don't think that they can leave all of the people that were not reached that applied for the no interest, the small business loans from the Small Business Administration. I don't think they can leave them out in the lurch. So they'll have to address that, particularly with this president that seems to be very fond of his own popularity. And I think he would want to make sure that he addresses all unpaid businesses. So my hunch is that something along those lines will happen very soon. Both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans, have already been talking about a second wave of assistance. What that will do for our economy in terms of debt, particularly in Illinois, that's a whole other topic. Illinois is already very much in debt, but whatever. Okay, so I don't know where you want to begin. I know that I have 4 subjects to talk about today. As you said, I am a divorce and family law attorney, but I do touch on other things that concern divorce and family law. So I do know a little bit about landlord-tenant. We'll discuss wills, and then parenting time, they used to call visitation, and obviously the child support.
So we'll get away from the small business loans. I just kind of wanted to touch on that. But there is you touched right now on let's touch on mothers or custodial parents. Let's just say, because we don't always, the custodial parent isn't always necessarily the mother. It could be either one. It could be a guardian. It could be the custodial parent. So that's that could be that approach where they're limiting visitation. And for me personally, it seems like in these times, it seems reasonable depending on what the other parent is doing. Uh, let's not pretend that this isn't happening, but at the same time, as a parent, you want to see your children. You want to interact with them because Lord knows how long this will go. This can go a couple months. This can go a couple more weeks, which I really doubt. But from a legal standpoint, how are I guess you have first line experience on how are judges handling that?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So when this all came about, COVID-19, the chief judge of the Circuit Court of County, his name is Timothy Harris. He's basically the boss of all judges. He handed down an order that said that effective March 14th, all Circuit Court of County courts were to be closed until April 16th. So, and that there would be an automatic continuance for all cases that came between March 14th to April 16th. There would be an automatic continuance of 30 days. And then there were cases that weren't necessarily in court, but where people were living their lives. This was people whose cases were over. Where all of a sudden, fathers were contacting me, and I were contacting other colleagues, complaining that the mothers, again, assuming that the mothers are the ones who were in residential custody, were not allowing them to see their children. Then about March 28th, there was another order from Timothy Evans that said that the court closure was going to be extended to May 18th. So currently, and that's the last word from the chief judge, that the courts are going to be closed until May 18th. So that sets, that puts forth a lot of questions. What to do while the courts are closed regarding alleged visitation interference. Well, the Chief Judge Timothy Evans has little bosses under him. Each one is a so-called presiding judge. A presiding judge is a boss of that particular division. So there's a boss for the criminal division, a boss for the domestic relations division, and so on and so forth. The boss of my division, the domestic relations division, Grace Dickler, then issued a standing order to give us some direction as to the problems that were coming about because of the court closure. And one of her directions in her order regarding COVID-19 was that all visitation was to remain as is, and that each parent was to respect the court order unless, quote, there was some sort of exigent circumstance why they should not obey the order in place for visitation. And that left it very much open to interpretation. Exigent circumstance, what is it? I mean, is it because the father's a police officer and is in daily contact with people that may be exposed to the coronavirus? Or is it, is it some mother that it doesn't like the father, it just kind of creates in her own head, and there's a circumstance that says, right, I just don't want to let you see our son. So what has happened then is that the same judge, Judge Stickler, put forth, because petitions were immediately being filed by parents who were not being given the visitation. And then that caused a sort of a cluster of petitions for the very same subject when we shouldn't be in court. So then the judge said, emergencies only, and they will be via Zoom. Fine, okay. So what is an emergency? Oh, it doesn't document if she says no, because I will use that against her later. But if she agrees to it and gives you Skype and FaceTime, then do me a favor. Be reasonable.
Yeah.
Because you're going to lose in court if you call it an emergency, because no judge is going to put themselves on the line and jeopardize children's health. So that's the best right now that we can do. And to keep the relationship going, at least speak to your child via FaceTime and be reasonable.
You know, at the end of the day, that to me personally, that sounds reasonable. It's given the circumstance. You know, under normal run of things, I think FaceTime and whatever virtual media is being used to communicate can seem unreasonable. But given the condition, I guess that's actually well within reason. But you are going to be right in where these custodial parents can be unreasonable, and I speak from experience. You know, that it's sometimes it's just to get back at the other parent, and that's harsh because we still need to interact with our families. We do it on good terms, and obviously we need to do it in bad terms. But that lays out a very interesting approach. And this is, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to put this out there so you can understand it, and what Efrain didn't really touch on. Communicate with the other parent. Communicate. This is sometimes what I'm finding, and in my course, I found that sometimes the lack of communication between parents, and I know they can get heated. We sometimes learn to what feels like hate towards the other parent for the solution of what was a happy marriage. At least we thought it was a happy marriage. And now we do anything to get back at that other parent. That first off needs to stop. You can agree. The court doesn't have to tell you what to do. Your attorney doesn't have to advise you what to do. No offense to you, Efrain, but you can negotiate. You can reason with the other parent. The courts and the attorneys and all of this is set up when you can no longer agree with each other. And you should be able to agree. This is your children's lives that you are dealing with. Respect them. Love them as your parent. Don't let somebody else determine what's good for your children, because the courts will determine what's good for them. They don't know your children. And here you are letting some stranger see what the law says to determine what's good for your children. You people are being unreasonable. And this is why Efrain can afford the Lamborghini that he has. Okay, Efrain does not drive a Lamborghini. He has several motorcycles.
That's absolutely right. You know, many years ago, when I first began to practice law, I'm not, too proud to admit that from time to time I would allow the clients to lead the way and sort of guide me in what I should do, even though I was a lawyer. There's been many years since I've had that happen because I've got more experience now. And if you listen to your clients and they want to file petitions, which kind of in your gut back then, now I know for sure they're going to be denied. If you allow your clients to dictate to you that you should file petitions that end up being denied, that leaves a sour taste in their mouth, even though they were the reason that you filed it in the first place. So now I say to my male clients, that presumably they are not the custodial parent, but the visiting parent, and say, look, the judges are not holding this to be an emergency. Can you see a way to do some FaceTime visitation in the meantime? No. Okay, listen, you are hereby warned. If you file such a petition and it doesn't, if it's not successful, then you still have to pay the fees for me to do that. I still get paid whether we win or lose. And then all of a sudden, when money is involved, quite honestly, this may be more the business of running a law practice, then they step back and go, okay, well, I'll follow your advice. See, if it's all free, they want to wage war. So, and I understand the hardship of not seeing your kids, but it hurts. But this is an unprecedented time. None of us in our lifetime have ever experienced some of this, and hopefully no one in our children's children's lifetime will ever experience something like this. So we have to take a different approach. We can't be a hard ass about things nowadays with this happening. So, yes, you're absolutely right. I encourage my clients to speak to the other parent, communicate, come up with a reasonable solution. FaceTime and Skype is reasonable, I think. And then if there needs to be make a visitation when things normalize, make that part of your agreement too.
How amazing would that be? that you can actually come out on the other end of this with something that's reasonable, something that you can actually both live with moving forward. I mean, some good has to come from this. In my experience, and just to be fair, Efrain has represented me, and he is true to that word that he had me reach an agreement with my ex. And believe it or not, it actually worked. He goes, amazing. You cut my work in half, but it made things a lot easier for me. And at the end of the day, it was easier on the court systems, because at the end, all it took was a few phone calls, one meeting, and what took 2 years otherwise, we resolved within a couple of weeks, which was amazing. And it truly is that simple. I know it's not a conversation most people want to hear. The custodial parent always likes to say, well, you're not paying me child support. Oh, well, this. Sometimes, and I hate to say it like this, the legality says you need to pay child support. But sometimes being a good parent, the custodial parent may not be so stringent on you giving that money if you're a good parent. What does that mean? And correct me on this, Efrain. There are agreements out there where it's a split visitation, where money really never has to switch hands. It just says that you split your visitation and you're equally responsible for that child. Of course, it takes a lot of proving, but you're a parent then. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we want to be, is good parents. I know for me that was my case. All I wanted to be was a parent. Everything else was mumbo jumbo. and that's difficult for some people to ultimately to accept, but that's, if you can accomplish that, you're in great hands.
Yeah, so I've been fortunate to have brokered a lot of good deals for parents and put them in a place where the focus is on the children. And you're absolutely right. If I've had parenting plans where parents have 55% of the time, the other one has 45% of the time. That is actually now codified in the law as far as child support in the state of Illinois. Now, the amount of time that the visiting, quote-unquote, parent has with the child will be factored into the child support calculation. So if a father has more time with his child, he will get a break from the child support. And the judge has a discretion to say nobody pays anybody child support because of the amazing amounts of time, particularly where it's 50-50. 4 days on with one parent, 3 days with the other one, and then 4 days with the other parent, and then 3. So there's a rotating sort of schedule where they both have equal time with the child. And under those circumstances, nobody pays anything to anyone. But those are situations, and they happen, believe it or not, but those are situations where the parents still get along.
Yeah.
Whatever the reason that they broke up, they're grown up enough to put that aside and focus on the rearing of the child. Because children will come out, okay, they're no surprise, will grow up healthier and happier if they see their parents getting along. So those people that can manage to do that, I'm sure they understand how much of an advantage their child is, even though their parents are not together.
Yeah. See, what happens is I think parents attack each other, and out of spite, they ruin a child. And they don't see that because their main motive is to ruin the other parent. And at the end of the day, the victim becomes that child, and they grow up with all kinds of problems. And it does not have to be that way. And I think that's horrible. I have a listener that is a policeman, and he's on top of the regular crime that we typically have, and this is I know, Efrain, once you are on the other side of this is going to be huge. You have people that are basically locked up together that for many years they hadn't, but he's saying that there's an increase in domestics. So what does that mean? That means that once happily married couple is no longer so happily married. They're getting to know each other. For myself, just so you all know, I spent a lot of time with her, and ups and downs. There's a balance here. So we haven't called the police on each other yet. but it's one of those where I don't know if you're hearing any of that, where there's a lot of domestics coming out, and there's going to be two things that's going to come out of where we're going. A lot of divorces and a lot of new babies. So either way, it seems like there's a lot of activity that's going to be going through to our legal system. Just because of this, because people will be getting divorced. They're like, I can't stand you, or now you're going to have people that I can't stand you, but now we have a baby on the way too. So that's to further complicate things. Keep it together. So what about and a lot of these stimulus checks are starting to go out, and if you owe child support. This is what I'm reading now. That if you owe child support, you're not getting that stimulus check. That's going to your baby mama or your baby daddy, whichever the case may be.
Right. So in the ordinary, before COVID-19, there was still something that the individual states, and in our case, the state of Illinois, could do. If you were delinquent in child support, they could intercept your income tax return. So that's always been a power of the state of Illinois. That if you're going to get a federal or state income tax return, they will take it and they'll send it to the mother as partial satisfaction of your delinquent child support. That is obviously the case with the stimulus checks. So, no father that owes child support should complain, in my opinion, because they owe the child support. So in the same way that, and if their complaint is, how am I supposed to get by? In the same way your child was getting by when you weren't paying child support.
Yeah.
It would be my answer. Now, so this is something else that has just happened. There's $500 that are coming for each child, but some couples have recently separated. Some couples have separated where the father was a sole breadwinner and filed a household income tax return claiming the children and the mother as dependents. Because he filed, he's the one that got all of the money deposited into his bank account. Arguably, those $500 stipends are for the children. So there's now brand new litigation that there ought to be a turnover of that money to the mother immediately because they are not together, and that money was allocated for the children. The standing law of child support is that child support is payable from income from all sources. The old issue, old and new more current issue, is that some fathers would have 2 or 3 jobs. Know that if you have 2 or 3 jobs, each one of those jobs is liable for child support. Each one of those sources of income can be tagged for child support. Now, if you read the statute literally, child support is payable from income from all sources. The stimulus check of $1,200 in and of itself is income.
Yeah.
So that can be tagged for child support too. So I would say that the money payable from a father to a mother right now would be from the stimulus check and from the $500 stipends for each and every child. So that's going to be something else that's probably going to be litigated as we speak.
Wow, that's very interesting because you're absolutely correct, and that money should be allocated for the children. And from experience, yes, any source of income goes to your children. I mean, and it's only fair. There's one. I'm gonna say call it a fly in the ointment. So, let's say you have a 17-year-old, you fell behind a little bit, you have a new family, and you are now out of work, and you fell behind for XYZ reasons. So now that money that was supposed to be for your stimulus, you won't be getting that. And now that was maybe something you were counting on, and mom is still going to get the $1,200 plus the $500 for the child. Now, if you didn't get the $1,200, you're kind of out of luck. And it's to me, and I'm just playing devil's advocate because it's going to seem lopsided because it's like, Jesus, now I got nothing coming. And people, there are those that are beginning to rely on that. And that's unfortunately, it's what it is. There's nothing that we're going to do to change this. And I know that in the coming months and once this begins to unfold, it's going to be a hot mess. That's a lot of things you're going to have to deal with. You're going to learn new practices in law, Efrain. But yeah.
Well, let me say this about child support and a father's downward turn in financial circumstances. I've heard it said a million times from judges from the bench. I have no clue what happens to you out there in the world if you don't file a motion to tell me what is happening outside in the real world. If a father has a so-called substantial change in circumstances, losing his job, being laid off, being fired, whatever, then he is responsible for filing a motion to downwardly modify the child support in the case where he has some income coming in, like unemployment compensation, or to abate and suspend child support in a situation where he's not eligible for whatever reason for unemployment compensation or hasn't come in yet. So basically, you have to notify the court. If you don't notify the court, and then months later, after COVID-19, by the way, let me say this: we attorneys can still file things. There's a little gadget called electronic filing, so we can still file things. And the request for assistance from the court is as of the moment it gets filed stamp. So if you file your petition to suspend child support right now, and you don't send mother any further payments of child support, she can't complain. Well, she can try, but she can't complain because your petition is on file. So if you don't file something, and then 5 months from now you say, oh, Judge, I lost my job back in March, the judge will be tough luck. Tough luck, sir. You were supposed to file something. So now you owe that money retroactively. And a judgment is hereby entered against you at whatever the amount is, collective of all the money that you didn't pay and all the money you could have filed something. So anybody out there that has had a downward turn in finances of the payor of child support, I would encourage to put something on file. Otherwise, you're going to get dinged for all of it at once when this thing normalizes.
So I'm going to just reinforce or echo what he just said. This is the most important piece of information that any of you can probably walk away that have children and that are in this circumstance. File a motion. You have an attorney that obviously started this work for you at some point. File a motion, and this is going to, and I'm going to use a little bit of vulgar language, but this will save your ass. This is what you need to do. You don't have to, Patty and when we did the financial show, she says, we don't talk. We don't communicate. So essentially what Efrain is saying here, to just reinforce, is communicate. Communicate with the legal system because you're already in it. Communicate. I can't enforce that enough. I'm going to say it again. Communicate with the legal system to protect yourself. It's not that complicated. Sometimes all it is one phone call. Correct me if I'm wrong, Efrain. One phone call begins that.
No, yeah, absolutely. So you have to file a motion for either an abatement or suspension of child support or a downward modification. Or what I usually do is plead it as a unibus motion where it's count one, downward modification, count two, in the alternative, abatement or suspension of child support. So you save your ass either way, okay? But if you don't file something, you don't get anything, okay? I've heard it a million times by judges. Judges say, I'm here from 8 in the morning till 4:30. Now, obviously not, because there's only a couple of judges sitting there on emergencies. But they'll say, I am here from 8 in the morning till 4:30 in the afternoon. You can file things, and I am here to hear you. You didn't file anything, you get nothing from me. So you got to file something so that the file stamp dated, whatever today's date is, April 17th, comes retroactively. So you won't get hit with that retroactive child support. There's guys, believe it or not, that go to jail. They have nothing but time on their hands, but they never file a motion to stop their child support. What happens? After they spend 2 or 3 years in jail, they come out to an amazing amount of child support arrears. And the first thing they try to do is, I was locked up, I wasn't working. And the judge said, you didn't file a motion to stop your child support based on a change of circumstance, so you owe the money. So, don't be caught in that trap. If you lost your job, if you've been laid off, file
Wow, how simple is that? Spread the word, ladies and gentlemen. If nothing else, this is pieces of advice that you need. Patty's advice was great. Patty, we still need to talk. SBA supposedly ran out of money. Patty's listening, so that becomes a whole other issue. Last Friday I had Tony on, which sells insurance, and one of the subjects that we touched on briefly was wills. This is inevitable. We're all going to die. And some of us own a pile of junk. Some of us have capital. Some of us, probably have not much, but a few heirlooms that we'd like to pass down to the generations. Keep the family from fighting once you're gone, because the best families, I've seen it happen over and over again. Once the patriarchs or the matriarchs begin to pass, they squabble over the remains, and sometimes it's almost embarrassingly not enough to even argue about. But people are emotional, and that's a key. I think key there, that people are truly emotional, and because they are emotional, they lash out towards other family members, and bitter feelings are created. So how do you prevent that from happening? Wills and testaments. Give us a little rundown on that, Efrain, to let us know how that can be done, and we can go from there.
Yeah. So, as this COVID-19 thing progresses, just the different things that are happening in our society, it's surprising. I thought that at my age, not too many things are surprising. But, yes, I'm personally getting quite a few phone calls about wills recently. And the will is pretty simple. I first email something called an intake sheet, which outlines all of your possessions, and then we can have a telephonic conference as to who gets what. Nobody that gets anything under your will can be present. Back in the day it would be in person. Can be present with me and the testator, the will maker, because they, under the case law, it's presumed that they are unduly influencing you to give up something. So you couldn't come to my office and sit with me and dictate to me the terms of your will, and your girlfriend is sitting right next to you. You couldn't do that. So so it's just a private conversation between the attorney and the client as to the things that they want to allocate to everybody. Now, you have to disclose all potential takers. So you have to disclose in the will. You have to disclose that you have 7 brothers and sisters, that you still have one parent who lives, that you still have, that you have a wife or whatever. Well, the wife is a little different. They, because of the marriage, will take a certain amount. But let's say you're not married. So then you have to disclose everybody, so that when underneath the disclosure paragraph of who is potentially able to get something from your estate, underneath that, will you very meticulously and specifically designate your motorcycle to so-and-so, your house to so-and-so. Then it is a presumption that if you didn't name somebody, they didn't get something on purpose. So you have to disclose everybody. If you leave anybody out of the mention of the potential heirs, then they can come in and bust the will open and say, I'm his brother. How could he have forgotten that he had a brother? Clearly, because he didn't put me in the will as one of his family members, this will is void, null and void on its face. It is defective on its face, and I want to challenge this will in probate court. Now everybody starts fighting. So that's the first thing. You have to name everybody that's potentially a taker under your estate. Then you very meticulously lay out who gets what. Okay. If you happen, if this, the unthinkable happens and you pass away, the matter has to be probated. Oh, I skipped a piece. So you have to be of sound mind to execute a will. So always, there has to be two witnesses that do not take under the will. 2 people that have no interest in you or the will, which is coming to witness your signature, to see you sign the will, so that they can later, presumably, if necessary, attest to the fact that you were of sound mind and body. Okay, that you weren't drunk, that you were able to sign something, that you were coherent, etc. That's interesting, because right now, we can't be in groups of people. So how do you get 2 witnesses at the same time? Well, I suppose you can wear face masks and, all the gloves and all that, and just kind of be person.
Yeah.
But the will protect you from any fights. Now, let me say this too. In a will, you have to designate someone who reads the will. There's going to be an invitation. There's going to be an invitation sent to all the people that come under the will and people that maybe aren't even taken under the will. Everybody is invited to the party. And then the person, the executor, who is the person who reads the will and distributes accordingly, is going to have to be vetted by the court. Because after somebody, because you can pick whoever you want to be the person who reads the will. But that person may not be up to snuff as far as the court is concerned. So once the person passes away, they will appoint a guardian ad litem or a GAL or an investigator, a court designated person to look into the background. If they don't do that, then the court will do it themselves. But they will look up your background to see if you have any criminal record, and particularly looking for crimes of I forgot the word for it, but crimes involving dishonesty.
Fraud.
Check fraud, retail theft, credit card fraud, anything like that. If you pop up guilty of one of those things, you will be disqualified as the executor. So all wills have a second person, like a fallback person. So if the first person cannot do it, will not, if the first person it dies before the will, happens to come into effect, or is disqualified by the court, or just flat out doesn't want to do it, then you always have a second in line person. So when you are picking somebody, and this is just common sense, I think, but it's worth mentioning. If you are creating a will and designating somebody to take over the distribution of your goods and items, clearly you will want to pick somebody that is holier than thou.
Yeah.
I mean, this person should be able to walk on water. It's extremely trustworthy. And if they're not, they run the potential of being excluded or disqualified by the court later when that will is probated in court.
So essentially, there's one thing that stuck with me on what he said, is that you have to name anybody that can claim anything that you own once you have passed, an heir essentially. So that goes brothers, sisters. I'm assuming grandchildren, great grandchildren, and so forth. I don't know how deep that would go, but I'm assuming that to some degree there's people in line, if you will, that are have the ability to say, hey, I didn't get mentioned, and once you mentioned and you weren't given anything, well, you were particular, you were known, acknowledged in that regard, and now you were just ignored altogether. But yeah, that's very interesting.
To be sure, there's a little wraparound clause at the beginning part of the will that basically says if you were not named above, you weren't getting anything anyway. I mean, I'm breaking it down layman's terms, but basically that's what it says. I hereby acknowledge all the people that potentially could take under my will. The aforementioned people take under my will. If you were not mentioned, so sad, too bad.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a whole lot of sense. I don't know how many of you actually have a will. I think at our age group, we still are thinking ourselves as young and invincible, but we've worked hard to acquire the things that we do have. Although some of us are losing it to this scenario, but it doesn't matter. We still acquired some things, and it's important that we essentially let somebody know this is what we want on where our things. It may be junk to some, but to some it may be gold.
I think that's absolutely true. I mean, some of the wills that I've done talk about my cufflinks. My great grandfather's cufflinks should be passed down to my son because someone's son was very emotionally attached to great grandpa's cufflinks. So now the rulemaker, my client, says, I want to be absolutely sure that in my passing, these cufflinks, which are gold Mexican coins, made out of gold Mexican coins, pass to my son so he can wear them proudly, that he, went down the line. And then his sister won't give them to her boyfriend, quite honestly.
Yeah.
So, you can't place a value on your things. They are your things, and because they're your things, you know what, man, I don't care if it's a pair of shoes. They belong to your father, and they mean something to you.
So I got Hector asking a really quick question. I think we've already addressed it. When they're talking about the new stimulus, which includes something to the effect of $2,000 a month, till I guess this passes, and he's asking essentially if that money would also go to pay back child support. From what I understand, the answer to that question, Hector, is yes. That money still goes to to paying back child support. That doesn't go away until that essentially you meet zero. If that means anything, if you're flat, unless, as Efrain is specified, you file a motion and then it goes retro. So if you file a motion tomorrow and they start with the additional revenue coming in and your circumstances have changed, then that also would change.
No. So if you file a motion to suspend your
No, he hasn't yet. He's asking as if he hasn't done anything yet. The back child support, and you're getting more stimulus money, and you haven't filed.
So I think that will depend on whether or not there's already an arrearage that has been accrued from before.
Exactly.
Okay, so some guys are paying current child support and a little extra on top for a previous arrearage.
Mm-hmm.
If someone has a previous arrearage, chances are that stimulus check is going to get stopped and intercepted and get sent to the mother. And then the SDU, the State Disbursement Unit, the people responsible for keeping an account of your child support payments or non-payment or the lack of payment, will then credit you when that money drops in to mother, payable to mother. So filing a motion will not save you if you owe back child support. What it will do is relieve you of the temporary obligation to pay current child support. What's owed is owed. You've been owed that from before.
Okay. I hope that makes sense to you, Hector. So yeah, if you're in the arrears, hey, think of it as a positive. Somebody else is going to pay that for you now. I mean, every dark cloud has a silver lining, and that's your silver lining right there. Now you got the feds helping you pay child support. Not the worst thing, I would think. Depending on how far back you are, that's the positive. I mean, you probably have to pay the taxes on it because it's still revenue, but hey, better to pay a little tax and not have to ever worry about that money again. That's a blessing. If you ask me, it's a blessing. Figure it out, my man. I don't want to. I don't want to be critical, but that makes sense. Just so you all know, bringing an attorney on was not free. Y'all need to send me a $250 donation per the listener. This is not free advice. Somebody said this is free advice. Not free advice. Pay me. I'm just kidding, y'all. This is. Go ahead.
One thing that comes to mind right now, since we're talking about child support arrears, it has to do with this landlord-tenant stuff.
Uh-huh.
So obviously there's the three branches of government: judicial, legislative, and administrative. Lori Lightfoot can issue an administrative order that landlords in Chicago suspend collecting rent. That is true. However, at some point, that order will be rescinded because things are going to normalize. Here's my suggestion to people out there. There's no such thing as a free lunch, okay? If you have a downward turn in income because you were laid off, you're probably still going to get an unemployment check. Yes, it's not going to be to the extent of your normal wages, but you should pay something towards your rent so that when we are in the clear and the order for no collection of the rent,
right,
all that is abated, you don't have 3-4 months worth of rent to come at you because landlords will be evicting people. That's it. So for my attorney friends who do landlord-tenant law, we've had this discussion, and they suspect that 1 million cases will come their way for evicting people. So there is no free lunch. If you have some disposable income, income either through unemployment or, obviously, if you're still working, pay your rent because it's going to come back in a snowball fashion. So, pay it, or if you have lesser income, pay a lesser amount of rent, but, communicate. I think everything revolves around communication.
That's exactly what Patty said. Communicate.
Yeah, communicate with your landlord and say, look, I'm on unemployment compensation. I'm only receiving 60% of my income. How about I just pay you 60% of the rent for right now? I want to give you something, though.
Yeah.
I don't think that any landlord out there, especially under a do not evict order, would say no to you.
Yeah.
But then, I know that, you reap what you sow. If you have the ability to pay and you don't pay, count on being evicted when this is all over.
So, and this is very true. This now here, listen to what I'm going to say, and I want your thoughts on this, because obviously you're kind of your profession is our buffer to that system that the banks use, that all these institutions use to execute, and your office or your position helps us to some degree to see what we can and can't do, what they can and can't do. Obviously, there's a lot of interpretation that's going to be there, but hear me out on this.
Let me just say this real quick.
Uh-huh.
To be the owner of a property, and property from first year of law school, property is unique because there's only one such property in the entire world.
Yes.
So when you own a piece of property, you are a so-called fee simple owner.
Yes.
To be a fee simple owner means that no one can tell you what to do with your property.
Yep.
So this no eviction order is temporary, but it would be unconstitutional
Yep.
to put it in place for any extended period of time because you are a fee simple owner. So if landlords are paying mortgages right now,
yes,
and we're able to get a deferment on their loans or whatever, they have the discretion ultimately to decide if they're going to evict somebody or not. And I don't see a judge at the eviction court later saying, fine, there was a no eviction order in place, but you still owe the money.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be incredibly difficult to come up. Let's say, for example, your rent is $1,000 a month. Pay $600 or $500 if that's all you can afford right now, but pay something because it's going to be much harder to pay $4,000 later.
Yes. So here's the point that I was making, and you're not the first, and there's plenty of people that have that mentality. The truth is, not everybody's going to heed that warning. Why? Because let's talk about human nature, the human element. We are creatures that have a certain, I'm going to call it almost like a stigma to us that we believe something will happen. Essentially, they will come and save the day. That's not going to happen. But let me, and I'm going to address this. This is perfect timing. There is what they're calling a rent strike, which means don't pay your rent, to cause landlords to essentially punish the landlords. What's going to happen? Landlords still have a mortgage to deal with, and they're not going to be forgiven. Mortgage companies have never forgiven. Let's just face that fact. So what I was getting into, let's give that mob mentality, because that's essentially what that petition was, or that organization was trying to say. They can't throw us all out. Yes, not today, but could you see this in the future where you have, the court system overwhelmed by everybody getting evicted? I mean, how would that play out? And that's kind of a curiosity. That's almost like post-apocalyptic kind of chaos where, the world is no longer, as it is, the world's no longer going to be what it was once. So what kind of an impact would that ultimately have? Would that force? I mean, and this is just opinion. And again, I'm not a professional, so I'm speculating here. Efrain's a little more, and I'm only asking for speculation, not asking for opinion, because opinion is worth something. Speculation. Can you foresee where laws would be enacted that would say, hey, too much of this, you need to be forced to negotiate, or it's very an interesting scenario that's playing itself out, and we're only in the beginning stages.
Yeah, so that reminds me of about some of you that are a little bit older, maybe 15 years ago, when everybody was getting a mortgage of an amount that they clearly could not pay,
right?
With no income stated. So with all due respect, but like even a paletero was getting a $250,000 mortgage. With all
Yes.
due respect to those hardworking paleteros, I don't mean any slight by saying that. But then later, when there would be a balloon mortgage and they weren't able to pay, the people who had that mentality and say, well, you can't foreclose on us all. Yes, they fucking can.
Yeah, they did.
And they did. Okay, so again, if you are not operating under good faith as a renter,
Yeah.
and you are not paying maybe a sliding scale based on your current income and communicating with your landlord, then everybody, including the judge, because you will see one eventually, will know that you will not operate under good faith and will execute the eviction order. Okay? So if you approach the world, I think, in good faith, I believe you can pretty much, do whatever. Nothing bad's going to happen to you, or less amounts of bad things. But if you are a person that operates under bad faith, you're going to get fucked at every turn because that's who you are. So just, the landlord, if you are someone of compassion, doesn't want to lose his building. Maybe the rental income is part of the way that he feeds his family.
Yeah.
So just operate under good faith, and good things will happen. That's really the bottom line with this.
I think that is a wonderful piece of advice. I think going back to communication, Patty really reinforced that, but you're absolutely correct in that if you operate in good faith, even when you'll be sitting in front of a judge one day and say, hey, I couldn't make my $1,000 payment, but every week I gave him $400, which was the most I can afford. And now that things are normalizing, a judge may see that with some level of sympathy and say, you need to work it out, which is very, very different than being out on the street and homeless. Take that into account. That's very interesting. I think that can help break that mob mentality of that it's not going to happen to me if we all unite. Because sometimes it's again the human element that we believe that you can't do it to all of us. Well, they have and they will. The Great Depression, they did, and they got away with it. Banks are institutions. Unfortunately, they're not your friends. There's when you get a mortgage, there's a stack of papers that you sign your name to that protects them from just these sorts of behaviors, these types of cases. So be wary of that. Be aware. No, Joel, you cannot get a free divorce. We're not here for that. Let's see here. I like that you get the return. Well, look, it's not. One of our listeners is saying that you get screwed at every turn. It's kind of like this. You go to the bank because you want something. They give it to you, and then you don't like the conditions. And unfortunately, I don't want to defend the banking system because it's god awful. But the truth is, that's what we have now. Many cultures use collective purchasing or collective, where they can create communities where they help each other to buy a small business, and then when you are successful, you help another one buy a small business. It's in the Indian community. That's why they own so many Dunkin' Donuts and 7-Elevens. It's great that they're able to work together to get a foot up, and they don't go to the banking systems. Koreans do it. I don't know about the Chinese, but I've known this because I've experienced this. But in our case, we have the banks to do, and we throw ourselves at their mercy because we want something. We want that car, we want that house, we want this, and we want that. And they'll give it to you, sure. But because they expect to get paid with an interest, which is a reward to them for their risk with you. And that's really what it comes down to. As hard as that seems, that's the reality. We talked wills, and we talked a lot of the finances again. We're Mexicans. Yeah, it seems like we are. ¿Cuál es el dicho? No hay peor enemigo a un mexicano que otro pinche mexicano. Which sometimes it's just a thing on the side note. Tomorrow, we are. Rainbow Blasphemy is trying to encompass all kinds of things. Tomorrow, I'm bringing on a comedian. Let's lighten up the mood. I'm trying to provide as much information as I can. We got a mortgage broker on Monday. So I'm trying but tomorrow will be lighthearted. Let's crack some jokes. Bring some jokes to the table if you got any. I'm bringing Chon on, funny guy. He was at some point on Comedy Central, so he's got a little bit to him. I saw his stand up, which was amazing. My ribs hurt from watching the guy. On a personal note, this weekend I will be selling pozole. so trying to make ends meet. Since I'm out of business, but if those of you that have tried my pozole, it's amazing. I'm not afraid to admit that. But $25 for 2 quarts, and I got containers. So, Efrain, any last words? Anything that you wanted to say to our listening audience?
Yeah, no. Well, if anybody has any questions or would like me to assist them with something, or anybody wants to maybe file something with the court, put them on notice of what's going on, they can reach me at the office. We will then return your call via our cell phones to set up a phone conference for a consultation over the phone or Skype or FaceTime. So my office number, and this is the law office of Efrain Vega, Efrain, last name Vega, Vega, and my telephone number is 773-847-7300. 773-847-7300, and I'll be happy to discuss other subjects one-on-one and in private with whoever wants.
We will post a link to his to his information, his contact information in the comments once we're done here. I'm doing this for my own sanity, for my own mental health, if you will. But it's I think it's turning into something. I really appreciate you, Efrain, for coming on. It means the world, I think, to those that will listen, subscribe to my YouTube channel. We're going to continue to do this even after things clear up. There's so much that we can always talk about. I appreciate what you did for us. Yes, I'll send me send me a check. I'll cut Efrain on his cut. Don't you worry. But I hope this is beginning to help and ease some of the concerns that some of you may have. This is what we're here for: conversation. We're here for entertainment. We're here for a myriad of things. And if there's something you want to discuss, leave a comment. Ask to join the Radio Blasphemy page on Facebook. It's for us. I won't exist without you all. That's the bottom line. I can talk, but if you guys don't provide me anything, there won't be anything. Efrain, once again, thank you so much. We'll be in touch. I will put your contact info on the comments, and really appreciate all your time today. You all got free advice today. Just send a man a thank you message. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much today, Efrain.
Okay, my pleasure, man.
Thank you. We'll talk soon. We're looking forward to riding with you this summer yet.
Absolutely, man.
All right, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So with all that, I appreciate all your continued support. Always, if you guys get a chance, jump over to the YouTube channel, subscribe, listen to it there. It seems to be a better medium. I do the Facebook one because that's where most of you guys are right now. But I really would like to move it over to that. So not only that, but Facebook would never pay me if I get eventually enough subscriptions and followers and what have you. YouTube may eventually pay me, so I really would appreciate that. I'm trying to make as much noise as I can. I do this for you all. I have this is a what we call a labor of love. Means that I get nothing for it outside of satisfaction, and the satisfaction is that I get to engage with you all. I get to engage with you all, which is amazing. It's a great piece of health, mental health for me. I appreciate you. I appreciate your comments. I look forward to seeing you all personally, not just virtually, but personally. I know that once we get the bans or the shelter in place lifted, I actually will host a massive cookout at one of these forest preserves, and it will be the Radio Blasphemy Cookout. We will have such a blast getting to discuss, because I think all of us that are on this page are very like-minded and believe in a lot of what we do here. So once again, I appreciate you. I can't say how much I can't say it enough, honestly. Patty, thank you again. Hector, thanks for the questions. That's absolutely necessary. Thank you. I see your comment about if I do need anything, brother. I hold strong, and better times ahead, and I believe in that. We all need to preach the positivity that is coming, because it will come. I got great game plans, and as long as we got health and life, para adelante. You know what I mean? And that's where we'll be. Having said all that, this is Radio Blasphemy, so don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. And thank you all for listening to sometimes my crazy rantings. Again, don't forget to tune in tomorrow about 8 o'clock. Chon, professional comedian, plenty to offer. We'll be posting flyers and what have you. Don't forget, over the weekend I got pozole, $25 for 2 quarts. I know, shameless promotion. That's what I do. It's my time. You guys are listening. Thank you guys. Love you all.